Well, hello YouTube, Mr. Gibson Guy here. Welcome to the channel. So nice of you to drop by. Let me just say at the beginning here, if you have not been on this channel before, then make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Give us a like if you enjoy this video, and tell your friends about it. Share it with other people. I have a YouTube channel that I've had going for 12, I think, years now, and I have a whole bunch of different playlists. I have, part of it is about classic vintage film photography, and I have, I think, this will be 112 photography videos that I have for you to watch, and I cover information about the vintage age of cameras and photography back from the 60s, 70s, 80s, before everything went into the autofocus and then the digital age. So some of us old-timers are still out there, but I will ask you to stick with me for a minute and watch this one if you get a chance. I think you'll find it interesting. Yesterday I watched a video from one of my favorite YouTubers, and he doesn't ever give his name. I guess most of us don't give our names. We give a handle or a hint or something. But he's from the UK, and so to me I call him Nigel. Real name unknown, but he's Nigel to me. And his channel is called Zenography. And he makes some of the most wonderful photography videos that anybody makes, and I enjoy them a great deal. This was one that I was watching yesterday that he just came out with, and it was a splendid video, very enjoyable. It kind of had some mission creep in the title. It was supposed to be the most beautiful camera, and then he kind of widened it to the top 10 most beautiful cameras, and then the top 10 most beautiful cameras within his camera collection. And I guess there's some people on YouTube that have vast camera collections. Like you can see behind me, there's part of a camera collection back there, but it's not close up, you can't see it too much. Some of my videos I show the whole thing, and I have 10 cameras pulled out of the shelves for this video, the top 10. So in my response to Nigel, who did such a good job, I'll try to do something that can at least be seen within the classification of his great work. And Nigel did his top 10. Most of the lists were primary Russian and Eastern Bloc cameras, Zorkis and Gorkis and Kievs and all kinds of stuff. I'm not an aficionado of the Russian cameras, and so I've done my list of the most attractive, the top 10 most attractive vintage cameras within my collection. And I have something beyond 30 cameras. I'm not sure, some I don't count, but I have over 30, let's say it that way. And I think that's kind of medium range. I think a lot of folks on here that have photography channel have a lot more than 30 cameras, 50 cameras, 60, 100, I don't know. Some people just have lots of them. I have other subjects that I do as well as photography, so I would really be crowded if I let myself get much over 30. I try to keep it so I can have pretty much everything in the display case and closed behind glass, so I keep them all from getting dusty. But this is going to be the top 10, and I've kind of followed Nigel's idea on this, in that sometimes a camera can be so closely related to another camera made by that manufacturer that they kind of get lumped together into one camera. And that's something that Nigel did, and I went along with him on it. And that is, this is the OM1, not the N, the OM1, but it could be an OM1N or an OM2 or an OM2N or an OM3 or an OM3T or an OM4 or an OM2SP, or the whole family of Olympus cameras are all based on the same platform. So we just kind of went with the OM family, and he excluded the 10s, 20s, 30s, the real consumer level plastic cameras, because they were not the same as the 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras. And I had put my notes mostly here about the OM4T or TI, meaning it has a titanium top and bottom plate. The whole family is miniaturized cameras, starting with the 1. This one has a Yugo Studio leather I put on it. I think it looks rather splendid myself, if I do say so. I think that's really a great looking camera. You can see it from the top. Most people are familiar with the OM1, 2, 3, 4. The electronic ones, not the 1s and the 3s, but they have through the lens flash metering. I think the 3 might do it, even though it's mechanical. Weatherproofing, and if you get an OM4T or OM4Ti, it has flash sync at all shutter speeds. It's the only camera that does that, at least, that goes up to 1/2000. And I have 2 of those, but I want to put this one in the picture because I love that brown leather that I put on there. I think it looks great. Great little camera. And I didn't change the leather on either one of my OM4Ts. They're just going to stick with what they are. But that's the number 10. Now we're counting down. Go to the front of the pile. And this is... oh, this is a very nice one here, Nigel would say. This is the the Pentax LX. And we're always supposed to remind people that it is an LX, not an ILX. But they put this little double line, see if I can get some light on there, so you can see the lettering on it. It looks like ILX, but it's really LX. So some people, if you want to find one on eBay that nobody's bid on, so you can get it, instead of searching Pentax LX, put in Pentax ILX and see if you don't get something new coming up. This is a professional camera. It has removable and exchangeable viewfinders. Let's see if I can do this. This one's tricky. Push. Yeah, there it goes. There it goes. Finder's removable. And you can see your pentaprism down there. And the LX followed, didn't come out with the Nikon F3 or the new F1 Canon, but it came out a little bit later. And they followed everything that Nikon and Canon had tried to do and tried to put it into their camera. And they came out with a pro camera that's a little bit smaller, has interchangeable finders, has 250 exposure film canisters that will attach to the back, all the usual gizmos. They had a motor drive for it that was unusual because it didn't have a handle, but they also did another thing which was much less common, which is they also gave you the option of an auto winder that was just like the usual rectangular or box-shaped auto winder that just took four AA batteries. But the auto winder was a little bit different, a kind of a deluxe one on this camera, because it had film wind and film rewind. You could rewind the film from a second motor in the auto winder. And now they had rewind in the motor drive. Of course, that's pretty common. Most of the motor drives will rewind your film as well. But they had the only, that I know of, auto winder that would rewind. And it went with another, I left that off when I transferred my little list here. It has, what is it? The film counter will go backwards when you rewind. If you want to rewind back to a specific frame, you can wind back there. Then you can make a multiple exposure of it. So it goes both ways, which was a kind of interesting idea, the film winding that nobody else thought of. I don't know that anybody else ever did that after that, but the LX said that they did that. Also, this camera had eyepiece correction on the inside the pentaprism, little thing you turn, and you can adjust that with that. So this is the Pentax LX, a very nice looking camera, and not heard of very much, but really pretty classy. And so that's number 9. Number 8, we get into, this is the big boy cameras. Usually I remove the motor drive with the auto winder, but this one and the one coming up next, it's kind of just known for the camera being permanently attached to the motor. It's just part of the whole package that you get with it. This is the Canon II F1, and you can guess what number 7 is going to be now that I've showed you number 8. The Canon II F1 was a hybrid camera that had electronic shutter speeds and mechanical shutter speeds. And this was the first Canon Pro camera to really stack up against the F3. I'm not saying that the F3 is better or that the Canon II F1 was better, because they were both a little different but very similar cameras. And they battled it out head to head, and they're still doing it because people say these are great pro cameras. That's number 8. Number 7, right next to it, is, of course, we've got to have a Nikon F3 high point with the MT4 motor drive attached. This motor drive MT4 had its own thing going on. It had a separate frame counter on the motor drive, so you could measure your exposures on the frame counter in the camera, and then you could reset the bottom one and pick up from there. And you could use the Ilford 72 exposure rolls of film that they made for a while, and you could keep up with your frame counter as you went through it. Finish this one, then go here, and you could count out all 72 exposures and have them numbered while you're doing it. Alright, this has the removable pentaprism, and the power in the battery also provides power to the camera itself. So if your little VL44s or whatever, your 357s went dead, if you had the motor drive on it, it'll go off the AA's in here. And this had the even faster, 5 frames per second was the maximum on an F2, but the F3 would go 5.5 frames per second, or you could lock the mirror up and go 6 frames per second. Couldn't use the mirror, the viewfinder though. And this one, with this battery pack on it, this big one that holds a whole bunch of batteries, yeah, this would go even faster. I think that one hits 7 frames per second. It's just zip, 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 like that. Really awesome way to burn through film in seconds. So the Nikon F3 HP there is the number 7. Also, see if I can not mangle this name, was designed by Giorgio Giorgetto Guagliaro. I don't know if I pronounce that in Spanish, was the designer. And this is the final manual focus pro camera that is still in use today and just about as popular as ever. But they were great cameras. Number 6, this one might get some people upset about this because they didn't know that there was such a camera, but this is going to get mentions a couple of times in this list here. This is the Contax Model 139Q, Q for quartz. That is that it has a quartz oscillator that times the shutter speeds, so everything is very accurate on it. It also followed the Olympus OM2 and has through the lens metering, light metering, and flash metering if you use the 4-connector flash that you got with this camera. So this one, I did this list with some cameras because they were innovative, some cameras because of outstanding features they have, and some cameras, didn't get too much of this, but I did with this, is this camera goes into the catalog of the most attractive and most sexy camera out there. If you're not familiar with this 139, it got famous for the skin peeling off of the camera, and you can see, just like with the OM1, which was another camera which was famous for shedding its skin, that this camera shed its skin, and I got the replacement vinyl kit or leather kit, whatever it is, from Hugo Studios in San Antonio, and I replaced the leather on it, and this camera, the way it came originally, it was like $25. Worked perfectly. It's a great camera, but it was a mess. And what I did was I bought this one and I put a cover on it, and I came across another one and I bought it too. So I have two 139s, and they're both refinished with new leather, and just an awesome camera. It didn't get much attention. I checked both of mine, and this one is serial number is 54,000, and the other one was 48,000. So that's pretty small production for something that was around for a while. But the sexiest looking camera, number 6, Contax 139Q, kind of a sleeper camera. And then another one, I like it. It looks just right to have that stuck in the back. Ektachrome. Ektachrome 64 daylight. This is another one like the Olympus OM1 in that this is a family of cameras. What is the family? Well, this one that I'm showing, it's funny because I picked the same one that Nigel did. He picked the FM, and mine is an FE. I also have an FM2. There is an FA. There is an FE2, which I think I had, and I sold one before. I shouldn't have sold it. I should have kept it, but I had an FE2, a couple of them, and that these cameras kind of blurred the line because it was considered an amateur camera, not a beginner camera, but it was for the amateur photographer. But these cameras, the FM, the FE, and the FE2, and whatever, they got snatched up by professional photographers. And we saw the new F1 Canon and the Nikon F3 HP, both of them with their great big multi-battery motor drives bolted to the bottom of them. No, just screwed in. But these cameras, the FE and FM series, were very lightweight and had a lot of features. It didn't have some of the top-line features as the Pro cameras, but it had a lot of stuff that the Pro line cameras did, and these ended up having faster shutter speeds available than the Pro cameras. Some of these were mechanical, some of these were electronic. The FE is an electronic, the FM is mechanical, but the cameras are almost indistinguishable. The one which is distinguishable was the last one that was kind of tacked on to this family, and that was the Nikon FA. Now the Nikon FA came out about 5 years after the F3, and there was tremendous amount of technology changes and advancements from 1980 to 1985. And when Nikon came out with the FA, it was another camera based on the FM FE series. It had a plastic top on it. These other ones are they're all brass on the top and the bottom, except for the F3T. The T models would be titanium, but the FA was one that used a plastic top, and the only one in that series. All the rest of them are brass. And the FA would work with the MD11 motor drive or the MD12 motor drive that was meant for the FM and the FE. But it also included a MD15, which worked exclusively on the FA. I have one. I have it on my FA, and it also, like the F3, powers the camera. And I kind of think what Nikon was doing with the FA, it was kind of like an F3.5 that added lighter weight, smaller body, a bunch of features that the F3 didn't do, like flash sync to 1/250th of a second, and shutter speeds to 1/4000th of a second for the FM2 and the FE2, not the FM and the FE. These were limited to 1/1000th of a second, but they put in some, and the through the lens flash, which the F3 had, also went into the FA. So these had a lot of technologies, and this was the biggest family of how many things can we stretch out. This camera started back when Nikon was still selling the F2 Photomic. Well, not the Photomic, but the F2A and F2AS. That's when the FM first came out, followed quickly by the FE. And then they went all the way up to the very end. They were still making them, and I think there's still an F3, FE3T something that they still have floating around in some places, like in Japan and in Asia. So another one. This is like the generic look for a camera. And let's get going because we're hitting the end of the list here. This next one, this was another favorite of mine, and I think that this one, you have to look at it for the beauty of the camera and the whole design, and the word that I said goes along with this one is refinement. This camera, this is the Minolta XD11, and this is the first camera that had aperture priority, shutter speed priority, metered manual, and it didn't, they called it green for go on this, they didn't call it programmed. Officially, the Canon A1 was the first program camera, but this camera was programmed. They just didn't have program in the name. They had green for go. You could set the shutter speed to 1/125th and the f-stop, the aperture down to f16, and then it would go into program where the camera would select shutter speeds and apertures for the correct exposure. Or you could do it mechanically or manually. So this camera, another one which was having some skin problems that I picked up, but the camera was perfect. It actually didn't work when I got it, but I cleaned out the battery chamber really good, and then it came back to life, and it's been working perfectly ever since. And these cameras eventually became Leicas. This was, I think, for the R5 and now R6. I think the R4 and R3 were based on the XE7, and then they went to the XD11, and that's took over making a couple of the reflex SLR Leicas that were around for a long time. Made for them by Minolta, basically this camera. And this has got to be like, well, it's set the standard kind of like the FM and FE did, of this is what 35mm SLRs were going to look like in the late 70s and through the first half of the 1980s. And they did a great job of it. This one has a Hugo Studio leather kit on it too, because the leather was coming off, and this is a little bit darker leather. It not quite as brightly seen as that tan leather, but still just kind of a muted classic like this. I think it looks really tremendous. So the Minolta XD11 coming in at number 4. And then I promised you we were going to have some more changes here. Yeah, I can see some stuff starting to show. Didn't see any of these on the list, but when you're talking about the look of a camera, this is one of those classic looks. Now this is one with classic looks, plus I'm also paying attention to expense, because medium format cameras can get real expensive real fast. And my favorite medium format, I've owned a couple of Pentax 6x7s and a couple of Yashica Mat 124s, but this one is always the camera that I pictured as what you would be interested in getting in a medium format camera. Obviously it's bigger. This one is not too heavy because of how I have it set up. The weight changes depending on the configuration of the camera. But this one, and I wore a white shirt so you can kind of see this stuff against my shirt so it would show up better. It was sunny this morning, but it's gotten cloudy now, overcast, but you can see this anyway. See down here? You can see it out this way, yeah. You see anything? Alright, well, you can see a little bit. This is the Mamiya 645. This is the 1000S. There's the 645 and the 645J. And then there's the newer autofocus models that I don't really keep up with that stuff. I like it to do it myself. If I'm not going to be the photographer, then somebody else can do it, not me. But I want a camera that I do myself. And it's even got a little memo slot up there for that. What does it look like? What does it look like? Something very classic. But this is the first modern pro medium format camera, and gives you the silhouette of a Hasselblad. And it shoots a little bit different format, but the same useful as far as how much negative you can use in your photographs. And really an awesome camera. When you put the viewfinder on it, the waist level finder, that's what this has, there is no light meter, because the light meters are built into the eye level finders. And they even make an eye level finder that doesn't have a meter in it. They had so many different finders for this. But originally the eye level or the waist level finder was the economy finder. It was the cheapest one you could get. The cameras was sold separately from the viewfinders, so you could buy whatever viewfinder you wanted. It wasn't came with this one or came with that one. You chose what they had in stock at any given moment, or what you sent away for. Did a lot of this stuff mail order back in the day before the internet. But this eye level finder is very light, and I have an 80mm f2.8 lens on it, which is also their lightest lens. I'm not going to say it's really light, but it is not bad. It's about the weight of just a little bit heavier than a regular 50mm on an Olympus or something. It's pretty darn light. And see if I can get this to go back on. You gotta get the red dot to line up. Lined up. Let's see. Yep. There. So with the lightweight lens on it and the lightweight viewfinder on it, or you could just take it off. And just try to look into that, although if you're outdoors it's going to be really hard to see anything in that viewfinder because it's so reflective outside. But we can snap this together, and this, I think, is just an awesome looking camera. This has two shutter releases, one up at the top and one down the finger here. And it's an awesome camera. It makes you slow down and really work on each exposure, because each exposure you have a lot of stuff to do, and it makes you, it's not for sports or animals, it's for deliberate targets that stand still, and you can get really gorgeous pictures out of this with that big negative that you get out of a 120 film. Alright, so number 3, the Mamiya M645 family. Awesome looking camera. Next on the list we have one, and this is where Nigel really gets to show off his stuff. This was the camera that I'm using here. This is not an SLR. This is a classic old rangefinder, like you would find Nigel uses all the time. He's got a bunch of these, and he uses Gorkies and Zorkies and Schmorkies, but this one is the Canon II, and this is Canon's pretty exacting copy of the Barnock Leica Model 2. And if you look at the Leica and you look at the Canon, they're almost identical. This is to the Leica that was made in 1927, I believe, or 28, long time ago. So it's about to reach 100 in the original Leicas that these came from. This camera is from the mid-50s, and it's one of the early ones that had a Canon lens on it. The earliest of these Canon rangefinders had lenses built for them by Nippon Kogaku, which was Nikon. So the first Canon cameras came equipped with Nikon lenses. Then they started building their own lens. And that's what this is. So really cool camera, interesting to use. It has 2 shutter speed dials. You've got low shutter speed and high shutter speed, which is common in the 1950s until later on. And even locks the focusing knob into place. You have to loosen it up, get it out again. So, number 2, let's look at this up close. I didn't show you too much of this. This is a beautiful camera, and it looks like and Leica II, or a Leica 3. It's got a couple rangefinder, and this one had 3 different finder settings for different lenses. It had a wide angle, a normal, and a telephoto setting that all went on the side here. And they changed which one you could see while you were looking through the viewfinder. Number 2, really cool looking camera. And before we go to number 1, we're going to have an honorable mention. Now the honorable mention would be cameras which should be in the top 10 most attractive film cameras, classic film cameras, but they were not in my collection, so I don't have them. The first one, as I mentioned, I had 2 of them. That was the Pentax 6x7, which is a great camera, but these days prohibitively expensive. So instead of getting the giant Pentax camera, I'll show you the little tiny Pentax camera. This is the Auto 110, and I have exchangeable lenses for it. But it's big. It looks like this, only huge. Next honorable mention, number 2, would be the Leica M3. Nigel has a Leica M3 and he shows it off. I would love to have one, but I'm not going to spend $2,000 or $3,000 for a camera and a lens. It's just a little bit rough for me. And the third honorable mention, which looks surprisingly like the Mamiya, would be the Hasselblad 500 CM. Yes, amongst all my cameras that I don't have any that are priced like a Hasselblad 500 CM or a Leica M3 or a Pentax 6x7 for that matter, as you look at it. That's a little too rich for my blood. But before there's any more blood, let's come to the finish here, the grand finale, and that is what do I think is the most attractive vintage camera of all in my collection. And what a surprise, it says Nikon Kogaku on it. This is my favorite, the Nikon S2. And I put down here for my interesting notes, this is actually from the cover of Bob Dylan's album, 1965 album, Highway 61 Revisited. Actually on the album, before everybody jumps into the comments, you can do that if you want to, but I will say that this is the S2, which appeared about 1952 or 53. The camera that you see on the Bob Dylan album was the SP, which came out about 1955, so it was a couple years after this one. It was very similar to this, but they did the brilliant idea of they combined the 2 shutter speeds into one shutter speed knob instead of 2. So it's a little easier to figure out. And it had 2 big windows here, one here and one here, that were almost connected. So you get a lot more light into your viewfinder, and it looks different. This is more the original one. And the original one was starting out as leading them Nikon into making an SLR, as they developed these rangefinder cameras from the first half of the 50s, and then towards the end they ended up taking the SP rangefinder camera, the more advanced later version of this, and put a removable pentaprism on the top of it and a mirror inside, and that became the first Nikon F. So the Nikon F was really made out of a rangefinder camera to begin with. And it has the same feature on this that you have on the unusual feature on the Nikon F, if you've seen one, is that this is a removable back and bottom. It all comes out of the camera. You unlock it underneath and it pops down, slides down, and you take the back off. There's the back. I'm not going to take it off because then I have to fight with getting it back on again. Comes off kind of easy, goes on kind of not easy at all, but I'll do it when I change film in it. But this, I think, is just the most awesome camera. I guess if you're not used to it, when I first started into photography, when I saw one of the pictures of the Nikon rangefinder, I thought, well, who would want that? It doesn't even have a mirror. What good is it? No, I want a modern camera. But then with age, eventually you come around to what really looks beautiful, and I think this does. Maybe it's an acquired taste. Still got the original Nikon Kogaku lens cap. For me, it's backwards, looking at the viewfinder. So that's about it. If you haven't seen Nigel's video about the most beautiful camera, I strongly suggest it. I'll put notes in a link so you can connect to see his video on that. And I hope you found this revealing and enlightening information for you. And can't wait to see you on the next one. So in the meantime, until next time, this is Mr. Gibson Guy, and I'm out of here.